And again, I'd like to welcome you all to our advanced tech training for the day, which will be covering all about DC, some apps you can use to explore DC and to learn more about the place that we call home. And I really look forward to presenting this session to you all today. And thanks so much for coming on. I'm going to read our disclaimer before we get started. The WildTech DC Senior iPad program, its owners and presenters offer technical assistance, virtual health well-being information designed for educational purposes only. You should not rely on the information, any applications or topics made by WildTech, including but not limited to mobile and device applications and any social media pages maintained by WildTech, its owners or presenters as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or legal advice. Thank you so much for letting me read the disclaimer. If you cannot see me, hear me, or see the screen, please let me know in the chat, and I would appreciate that. And let's just make sure to keep our cell phones and TV silenced to the best of our ability so that we can give others, but most importantly, ourselves, the most immersive experience. We're going to learn a lot today about DC. So also, make sure to have a pen and paper or your device, however you take notes next to you, because there will be a lot of fun facts and information today. So just, if you can or if you'd like, have a notepad next to you and you can write down some notes. To keep our meetings organized and have some kind of etiquette, I ask that you use the raise hand feature. You can raise your hand, which again I want everyone to do is you tap more, okay, and then you hit raise hand. Again, if you ever have a question, a comment, or a concern, reaction, etc., you can raise your hand using this feature. So thank you. So 7-0 so far. And then raise your hand if you in Zoom, just to raise your hand. But if you are a native Washingtonian, I want you to raise your hand in Zoom because we're learning all about DC today. So, you know, I want all the native Washingtonians to raise their hand because it's really, really, amazing that, you're still, you guys still call this place home. I've called, I'm not originally from DC, but I've been here for about more than 2/3 of my life. So in a way, I feel like I am, but, it would have been interesting if I was, born here and kind of got to experience that in a way. But so yes, raise your hand in Zoom, just practice. Or if you're a native Washingtonian, I want you to raise your hand. So we have 9 hands up. That's really amazing. Thank you all so much for raising your hands. We just got 10. Thank you, Miss Gracie. You all can lower your hands by hitting lower at the bottom. But whether you're from DC originally or you came here for one reason or another, we all have different stories. I hope you learned something new about, again, the place that we call home today. Okay? So again, don't forget to lower your hand by hitting lower at the bottom. If you want to communicate with others non-verbally, the chat is a great way to share a greeting, ask a question, send your congrats, your encouragement, any resources, information, quotes, anything of that nature. You can share in the chat. Again, I want everyone in Zoom to share a chat. You can do so again by tapping more at the top right, and then you can hit chat. On your end, the chat will be the first button, okay? You can hit chat, and then at the bottom, it says tap here to chat, and you type in the message that you want to send. So if I just want to send a simple hello, and today is tax day. So let me see if I can find, let's see. Oh, here's some receipts right there. I'm trying to find some money. Oh, here you go, some money. So yeah, you can have as much fun in the chat that you want to share, whether it's just text or you can use emojis, things of that nature. You can do so in the chat. You can even send a picture in the chat by hitting this plus sign right here. And then you can hit photo and add any photo from your Photos app into the chat. So let me send this beautiful image that someone colored in. Who doesn't love some pizza? But anyway, you can share any photo, any text, any emojis. You can even let's say, oh, I love this picture, Miss Rosemary. Thank you for that. I love it. If I wanted to save this image, I can hold it with my finger and then hit save image. Or if I'm in it like already, just because I want to see it fully, I can hit these three dots at the bottom right and then hit save image, okay? So yeah, I see you all on this great, yeah, feels wonderful outside. Good morning. More happy Monday, better week, glorious spring assurance. It's finally spring. You know what I'm saying? Spring is here, even though it came March 20th. You know what I'm saying? Emancipation Day, yes. Please enjoy your holiday. It is quite strange to have a holiday on a, not on a Monday or Friday, right? But I hope you all enjoy. I know I will. Um, some new messages. Wow, I love it. I love all the chats. uh, we usually have a guest on Tuesdays, so it's we'll miss that guest, but we'll have forwarded to Thursday's guest, okay? Uh, that is always about food. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Mr. Steven. If you maybe in the chat you could share who that is. That would be wonderful. I would also love if you could, well, one, thank you so much for sharing your chats today. I love how active you are all today. I did go over what the rest of the week was, but, again, we host about 15 sessions a week on a regular basis. I mean, that's a lot of info and socializing and learning and fun. So, after seeing what will be happening, please share in the chat what session or sessions you are looking forward to this week, and why, if you would like. Okay, I'm really looking forward to, well, this session, learning more about DC, learning more about home is always fun. We have Mr. Ronald at 12. I know you all really enjoy talking about sports. Love to see it. We have our book experience, our guests, our lunch club. We'll be taking a trip to two countries this week. So I look forward to learning more about that. And of course, I think all of the sessions have great purposes and intent. So again, please share in the chat what sessions you're looking forward to this week and why. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and get started first with our agenda. One, we'll be learning all about DC, some history, some fun facts, and learn more about DC Emancipation Day. We'll be covering 3 apps as usual, Fox 5 DC, DC Historic Sites, and the White House Experience. Last but not least, we'll have our overview and discussion and just, talk about how these apps can positively impact your daily life. And again, thanks so much for coming on, and I really look forward to presenting this information to you all today. So first, all about DC. So we have a couple of videos, so, grab a snack or, your coffee or your water, whatever you'd like, and enjoy these videos. I think they're quite interesting in their way. These first 2 talk about DC, and the other 2 talk about Emancipation Day in DC. So I hope you all enjoy. And, maybe write down or jot down some of the most important or noted things that you see in the videos, okay?
Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. Located between Virginia and Maryland on the north bank of the Potomac River, the city is home to all 3 branches of the federal government, as well as the White House, the Supreme Court, and the Capitol Building. Washington had an estimated population of 700,000 as of July 2018, making it the 20th most populous city in the United States. It was founded in 1791 and named after President George Washington. Columbia, in District of Columbia, refers to Christopher Columbus. Washington, the District of Columbia, is not a state, nor is it a part of any state. It is a unique federal district created specifically to be the seat of government. From the very beginning, it was a city that was steeped in history and created out of a need to establish a central location for the running of the government. The history of Washington, D.C. is tied to its role as the capital of the United States. Various tribes of the Algonquian-speaking Piscataway people inhabited the lands around the Potomac River when the Europeans first visited the area in the early 17th century. One group, known as the Nacotchtank, maintained settlements around the Anacostia River within the present-day District of Columbia. The site of the District of Columbia along the Potomac River was first selected by President George Washington. The city was officially founded in 1790 after both Maryland and Virginia ceded land to this new district to be distinct and distinguished from the rest of the states. To design the city, in 1791, George Washington appointed Pierre Charles L'Enfant to devise a plan for the new city in which the federal territory would lay between the northeast shore of the Potomac River and the northwest shore of the Potomac's eastern branch. He planned a grid system, at which the center would be the Capitol building. Progress was slow, but the U.S. government moved to Washington in 1800. In 1802, Robert Brent was appointed the first mayor of Washington. However, a decade later, because of the war with Britain, the city came under attack in an episode known as the Burning of Washington. British forces burned several buildings, including the White House. Most government buildings were repaired quickly. However, the Capitol was largely under construction at the time and was not completed in its current form until the late 1800s. In the early and mid-19th century, Washington, D.C. continued to grow. A rail line from Baltimore to Washington was opened in 1835. However, there was racial tension in the growing city. There were many slaves in Washington as well as free blacks. The tension erupted in the Snow Riot of 1835 when whites attacked blacks. Washington remained a small city of a few thousand residents, virtually deserted during the summertime until the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861. President Abraham Lincoln created the Army of the Potomac to defend the federal capital, and thousands of soldiers came to the area. A year later, slavery was abolished throughout the district, 8 months before Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. The city became a popular place for freed slaves. The significant expansion of the federal government to administer the war and its legacies led to notable growth in the city's population, doubled to 132,000 in 1870. Life in Washington, D.C. improved in the late 19th century. President Grant appointed Alexander Robey Shepherd to authorize large-scale projects that greatly modernized Washington. It was the first city in the nation to undergo urban renewal projects as part of his City Beautiful movement in the early 1900s. In the early 20th, the McMillan Plan was drawn up to remove many of the slums that surrounded the Capitol, replacing them with new public monuments and government buildings. Washington, D.C., however, remained deeply divided along racial lines. Violence broke out in cities across the country again. Whites, including uniformed sailors and soldiers, attacked blacks during Red Summer. Woodrow Wilson gave a voice in world affairs throughout the country's entry into World War I in 1917, and through his work to establish the League of Nations, an organization promoting international cooperation. After the war, civic pride and culture flooded the city. Art galleries, museums, and concert halls were built. Like the rest of the country, Washington, D.C. suffered in the Depression of the 1930s. At the same time, the city's population grew rapidly with the creation of additional federal agencies under the New Deal programs of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, during which most of the Federal Triangle buildings were constructed. World War II brought further population increases and a significant housing shortage, as existing residents were urged to rent rooms to the influx of federal staffers who arrived from throughout the country. In 1957, Washington became the first major city in the nation with a majority African-American population. With the buildup of government and defense industries during World War II, many new residents found jobs. In the post-war years, whites who were better established economically began to move to newer housing in adjoining states in the suburbanation movement that occurred around most major cities. In 1963, Washington took center stage in the Civil Rights Movement with the March on Washington, where Dr. Martin Luther King delivered his historic "I Have a Dream" speech. However, following the assassination of King on April 4, 1968, in Memphis, Washington was devastated by the riots. The civil unrest drove many whites and middle-class blacks to move out of the city core. Despite riots and civil unrest, Washington, D.C. continued to develop during the rest of the 20th century. After more than 200 years as the nation's capital, Washington has developed as a complex and layered city with a distinctive character, both a town for locals, an international center of power, and an amazing place to visit. Thank you for watching. Please check out our other animations.
That was quite interesting, you all. I know there were quite a few facts that I did not know, but definitely a lot of names and words that I recognize as places now in DC, especially Anacostia. You know, they said Shepherd, I think it's Shepherd Park, etc. So especially the name, you know, every part of our name, Washington, Columbia, has a meaning, which I think is quite interesting. The next video we're gonna watch is, why is DC shaped like that? Because, you know, if you notice the shape of DC, even the question on video says, "Where's the rest of the square?" So, thankfully, I did take you had to take a DC history class to graduate from DC public school. So, I learned about this then, and it'll be interesting to see what additional information that we learned today.
It's a capital carved out of two different states, a town at the center of a government that doesn't represent them, and a diverse, multicultural city known for its unusually high number of geriatric white dudes in power. What is Washington, D.C. if not the land of contradictions? Even its shape seems contradictory. It is, unlike the natural sprawl of most cities, almost a perfect square until it disappears into the Potomac River. But why is DC a perfect square, and where did the rest of it go? Our story begins the same way the musical Hamilton begins if you snuck in during intermission, with the Constitution, specifically the convention that ratified it in 1789. There are many vexing questions that they needed to answer with not a lot of time on their hands. How many votes did states get in national elections? How did congressmen get elected? Are women real people, or are they just kind of fun decorative objects that you can put in your house? But in between these important matters was the issue of the capital. After bouncing between Philadelphia, Trenton, Annapolis, and New York City for sessions of Congress, they wisely deduced that sending every member of Congress up and down the East Coast was ultimately going to be at odds with Amtrak's plan to never offer cheap train tickets ever in history, so they decided to establish one permanent capital city to meet in instead. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution states that the nation's capital must be created as a district that encircles the city, which can't be bigger than 100 square miles or 259 square kilometers, and that land must be ceded by one or more states to create it. Representatives had landed on two potential sites in Pennsylvania, one near Philadelphia and one in Lancaster, presumably to capitalize on the untapped Amish labor market for building all those rotundas. The problem was, the convention's southern delegates resented having the nation's capital in a state they considered the North, especially because Alexander Hamilton had been harassing southern states to pay back their Revolutionary War debts at the convention, even though the southern states insisted that they totally were good for it and to just chill out, man. Things weren't looking good, so Hamilton thought up a good compromise that would appease everyone in the moment and annoy everyone in the long term. Known as the Compromise of 1790, the capital would be established in the South in exchange for southern states indirectly paying off the war debts of northern states. George Washington suggested the unoccupied parts of Maryland and Virginia on the Potomac River as a good compromise because neither the North or South really wanted it. And what better place to put the nation's capital than a piece of land nobody wants? At the convention, Virginia and Maryland agreed to donate those lands to the US government in a perfect diamond shape that looked like this. DC became established as the required 100 square mile or 259 square kilometer, square that included the cities of Alexandria and Arlington within its borders. Roughly 60% of the city would be located in Maryland and 40% in Virginia. By 1800, the move was complete, and DC kept the same shape for 50 years until changed by America's third favorite pastime, racism. Trouble started brewing on the Virginia side in the 20s, with Alexandria experiencing quite an economic decline because the city, much like climate change or members of Congress's children, was neglected by members of Congress. DC still didn't have its own set of laws, which meant that Virginia laws governed the Virginia half and Maryland laws governed the Maryland half. Which, from an urban planning perspective and also from a regular perspective, seems bad in one city, let alone the nation's capital. Plus, both states' laws were frozen in 1801, with zero DC citizens having any political representation, either in Congress or in a special local government. And the feds' ignorance of the consequences of their actions proved to be their downfall. The district's 5 jurisdictions, which included Alexandria City, Arlington County, Georgetown, Washington City, and Washington County, didn't agree on how to sort out this negligence, so they each took different courses of action. As Lincoln would say 10 years later, a house divided cannot stand. Alexandria City and Arlington County became disillusioned by being part of DC because the federal government had decreed that buildings could only be constructed north of the Potomac, which effectively shut Alexandria out of having any new construction or industry. Meanwhile, DC East was thriving. This meant Alexandria relied on a brilliant economic development tool called enslaving people, and they were worried the United States might, for some reason, decide that wasn't cool anymore. So they wanted to rejoin Virginia to keep slavery legal. Although it took 10 years, Alexandria voted to petition the state of Virginia to take back the land it had donated to DC, which is known as retrogression, and seems familiar. And despite the fact that leaving DC would increase taxes by $20,000 each year, a majority of residents made the classic American decision that they liked racism more than money and voted to leave the district. Both Virginia and surprisingly Congress approved the retrocession in 1846, probably because they were too busy trying to keep the United States, united, and didn't care if some whiny racist babies wanted to be reabsorbed into Virginia as long as they were still part of the Union, which meant that no part of Virginia was part of DC anymore. Since then, the metro area has expanded exponentially, but DC itself has stayed the same size, this weird half square, half squiggle, because Maryland won't donate any more land to the district, and Virginia hasn't budged on giving back the land they pledged and then took from the city. And even if the feds wanted to expand DC's borders, which they don't, they'd have to pass it through Congress, which they couldn't even if they wanted to, thanks to the 109th word in this video. And whether you live in the nation's wonky capital or the lost city of El Dorado, just existing in the year 2022 means you're probably pretty busy. And if you're pretty busy, you probably know that
Wow. So even though it was quite satirical with the video, I mean, some definitely what he's in a way definitely is true, with how things were back then. But wow, Maryland wouldn't give any land to us, and Virginia will not give us the land back that they gave us at first, but then wanted back. I just think, wow, that's something to think about, right? So before we move on to our next videos, I actually also have, specifically to talk about the Black history of DC specifically. It's not mentioned too much. So, I found this article online that I found quite interesting that, mentions these things, right? So it's 10 things you didn't know about Black DC history. If you go on Google and search the article, it'll literally be the first thing that you see. So really quickly, when people talk about our city, they're quick to talk about the monuments, White House, Capitol Hill, but our city's history, especially Black history, goes well beyond what meets the eye. In fact, we were the first majority Black city in the nation, which was covered in the video, right? So I'm just looking through. Did you know that Benjamin Banneker, a free Black man and tobacco farmer, helped map out and plan DC? That's why Benjamin Banneker, high school, which is really interesting. Did you know that a variety of historically renowned Black creatives and abolitionists, historians, and civil rights giants used to live in DC, like Carter G. Woodson, Duke Ellington, Frederick Douglass, Mary Bethune, Paul Dunbar. So all names that we recognize, right? And look, his former residence, Frederick Douglass, is right there. That's pretty interesting. M Street High School, known as Perry School, was one of the first Black public schools in the country and was founded in DC, 1870. Wow. DC was home to the first African American Young Men's Christian Association, YMCA, in the country. Industrial Bank, which has been in operation for nearly 88 years, was the first Black-owned bank in DC. I actually just recently learned about Industrial Bank, so it was really cool to see that info. Lee's Flower Shop, I know one of us has actually mentioned that shop on here, is the oldest florist in DC. He has for nearly 80 years provided his customers with the fresh flower designs and gifts. Right there on in U Street corridor. Anacostia Community Museum, located in Southeast DC, is part of the Smithsonian. We all know about go-go, right? It originated in DC. Founding of UDC is rooted in the abolition movement. And DC has an African American heritage trail. Yeah, and I've seen these throughout the city that identifies more than 200 sites that are important in local and national history and culture. So again, just doing some research and some information on this topic yielded quite some new information. So I hope you all enjoyed that section. Oops, 1 second, you all. Thank you. But again, some things you didn't know about the Black history of DC. I hope you all learned something new with that. The next link we're going to look at, thank you, is 20 African American history destinations in DC. Again, this is just a website that I found and was quite interesting to see the different spots that you could go to and learn more, like the National Museum of African American History, on Constitution Avenue, National Museum of African Art. Pretty interesting, the MLK Memorial, Howard University, Meridian Hill Park, Ben's Chili Bowl is a DC staple. the Frederick Douglass National Historic Site, the Thune House, the Anacostia Community Museum we just talked about, the Lincoln Theater, Civil War Museum and Memorial, the Howard Theater. Wow, there's a lot of places to learn about DC and African American history. That's amazing, right? Wow, Emancipation Monument, East Capitol and 11th Street. I do pass by there quite a bit, so I'll be sure to check that out. East Capitol and 11th, Shaw Memorial, Sojourner Truth Sculpture. Wow. Again, just what you can do with just a simple Google search and learn more about the place, again, that we call home. So I hope you all enjoyed. Our next two videos, again, a history of DC Emancipation Day. And again, hope you find it quite interesting. So now we're going into tomorrow's holiday.
So let's take the next 2 minutes to focus on the history of Emancipation Day in D.C. Turns out President Lincoln was a little hesitant about freeing slaves. He decided to start small and focus on our city first. Lorenzo Hall with that part of the story.
The original D.C. Emancipation Day festivities were all about celebrating freedom from slavery when, with the stroke of a pen, President Abraham Lincoln freed more than 3,000 slaves in Washington. A soft launch, if you will, in 1862 for his bigger plans to free slaves in several states a few months later.
Lincoln was a little bit on the fence about the whole idea.
Jane Levy is chief historian at the Historical Society of Washington. She says nobody really knew what freeing a large number of slaves would entail. There were already some free blacks in Washington who worked and paid for their freedom, but they were governed by black codes, including 10 p.m. curfews and even fines for disorderly conduct.
This was just a way of controlling the black population.
So freeing millions of blacks was a bold idea, and Lincoln, facing increasing pressure during the Civil War to end slavery, wanted to try it on a smaller scale first in Washington.
Washington, D.C. has always been a laboratory for federal experiments.
He was able to make that happen in D.C. because, unlike the states, the president and Congress controlled the city.
He really honestly believed that blacks and whites could not get along. It would be better if we separated them.
That's why, in addition to ending slavery in D.C., Lincoln agreed to pay D.C. slave owners $300 for each slave they owned and $100 to those newly freed slaves to leave the country.
Very, very few people took him up on the offer of leaving the country, even though their money was there. They didn't want to go. This was their home.
A supportive home, because those blacks who were free before 1862 established a network of churches and schools. That black base made the city appealing to those who would eventually be freed by the Emancipation Proclamation.
The city would be overwhelmed by African Americans.
They saw Washington as a city where they could be protected and pursue opportunities. In the district, I'm Lorenzo Hall, WUSA 9.
Not the easiest of times and decisions and everything going on, so it's just interesting to see what had to take place to get where we are now, right? Again, another video on the DC Emancipation Act, and I hope y'all enjoy.
The terms of the April 16th, 1862, the Emancipation Act, required any owner of slaves living in Washington, D.C. to document each of the enslaved persons, give their names, give a physical description of each person, and give an estimated value of each person.
This act established 3 commissioners to hear petitions from slave owners in the District of Columbia applying for payment for their slaves.
Congress paid slave owners to give up their slaves. That's morally questionable. They knew it, but they felt for this first emancipation, it had to be done.
They actually hired a slave owner, a slave dealer from Baltimore, who came in and actually appraised the slaves.
This particular record is the slave schedule for the Addison family. It gives some insight into.
Just looking at it is wow.
Thoughts, the motivations, the fears of some of the formerly enslaved African American community at this time.
They left the city on the 13th of April last, 3 days before the approval of the said act, because they feared they would be colonized in Africa.
they're the descendants of Africans, but at this time they're several generations removed from Africa, because so from their perspective, they're not going back anywhere. They're Americans.
They went to Montgomery County, Maryland, where they remained until the 28th of September last, when they returned here and claimed their freedom under the above-cited act.
Some slave owners did not apply for compensation. They did not want to free their slaves. So in July of 1862, at Lincoln's urging, Congress passed a supplemental act that allowed slaves to petition for their own freedom.
There were 161 petitions submitted after the July 12th Supplemental Act. Most of these 161 petitions were submitted by individuals who had been enslaved themselves. This record is interesting in that this particular enslaved person, Philip Meredith, claims to be the slave of General Robert E. Lee.
The commissioners who were here in the petitions worked extremely fast. They were in existence from April of 1862 to January 1863.
At the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, we are transcribing the records, so they will be fully searchable.
This particular document here is the actual petition that was filled out and signed and presented by Clark Mills, who actually worked on the Statue of Freedom that you see today on top of the U.S. Capitol. His slave, Philip Reed, was the person who actually succeeded in molding that particular statue.
Our digital site is called Civil War Washington. It examines the history of slavery, race, and emancipation during the war.
We can see that Clark Mills highly valued Philip Reed and his skills. Like many of the enslaved persons at that time, I assume that his hope was that at some point he would know the reality of being free.
That's, wow. Just putting a price to a person is just, if you want to learn more, just like in the video that you all see, you can learn more by going to civilwardc.org. So if you go to Safari and check that out, then there'll be more information. But especially with some of the information in this video is quite interesting. And thank you all for experiencing these videos to learn more about DC and specifically about DC emancipation and what happened because of that. So I have this quote here that I found that was quite interesting. It was made by Dan Brown, an American author. And he said that Washington, D.C. has everything that Rome, Paris, and London have in the great way of great architecture and great power bases. Washington has obelisks and pyramids and underground tunnels and great art and a whole shadow world that we really don't see. And this quote made me chuckle because Washington is quite small in a way. Like you can literally go up and down DC from the top to the bottom, and in good traffic in like 30 or 45 minutes by car. So, but yes, even with the size, DC is such a cultured and populated area, right? That there's so many different things that we still, and we're also learning about our city. So I definitely agree. Rome, Paris, and London, all in one city. Hey, who can beat that, right? But does anyone have any reactions to this quote? That before we move on, you can raise your hand. I'll take one or two because we're already at we went by quite a bit. But I just wanted to make sure we show that in these information because I thought it was quite interesting. And did you want to respond to this quote or and in relation to the videos that we watched?
Yes, I do want to make two comments. The first comment was that I was all the studying, and I actually taught third grade DC history, because that's what they teach in the third grade, DC history. I don't know what they're doing now because I haven't been in school system for a while, but that's what we used to do. And I was shocked because I've read a lot of things. I don't ever remember reading anything about that they paid for the slaves to be to the slave and
Mm-hmm.
that really gave me a headache. That really did. But
I
anyhow,
can understand. Mm-hmm.
and this city has a lot of history that has not been brought to the top. There's still a lot of history in this
Mm-hmm.
in this area that is not um, exposed or talked about until recently. And a
Surely.
lot of people still don't know. A lot of people do not know those underground tunnels. I've been talking to people at Howard that have worked at Howard for years, and they did not know those tunnels even existed until I started asking questions a year ago.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning something like that before. So it's still a city of mystery in a way.
It is, and we do have some powerful architecture and power bases and pyramids, statues in this
All
city,
over.
all over that are very poignant. And the one you mentioned at 11th and was it Maryland Avenue or over that way,
Mm-hmm.
11th Street. People passed that statue and they never knew what that statue was for.
It's same. So yeah, I think it
There,
said East Capitol 11th Street. So
yeah,
I'll be sure to check it
yeah,
out.
yeah. There are people that do not know what that statue means, and they have said
Mm.
that they said, "How do you know that?" I said, "Because it's you read it. You can go find out." But
Yeah.
I mean, when my mother came here, she explored the city, and she learned about a lot of things. They used to walk all over and find out the cultural things, like when you go to New Orleans and find out stuff that people don't know that are there. But the actual feeling that you get in the city, that you go to statues and places. And I understand where the Confederate statues are offensive, but hiding history is going to come back to bite you eventually. And hiding history. And now that you have all these people, you've got videos and all this, and people are talking, and older people before they die, and they're reading diaries and stuff. Um, you To me, it's silly. Don't take them down, but put up what the real meaning and what they did to destroy the country, and let people know. Okay, so at that back in there, they were putting up statues because they thought those people were great because they were keeping down black people and slaves and stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Um,
don't tell half the story. Don't tell.
I
There were
definitely
slaves
understand.
all over this country.
Mm-hmm.
Slaves were everywhere. So that it was don't tell the whole story. The Civil War was because the South wanted the North not to take their slaves and free them.
Oh yes. I thank you so much for sharing, Anne. We really got to move on to our apps for the
I'm
day because we're
sorry,
almost
but
out of
I'm
time.
very
But
passionate about history.
I really appreciate your comments today and your sharing of your knowledge. Thank you so much, Anne. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So moving on, thank you so much. I hope you all enjoyed the videos and jotted some things down that you learned. We'll of course have our overview and discussion. So we'll love to hear as many of you talk about maybe something that you learned today. Today we'll be covering 3 apps: Fox 5 DC, DC Historic Sites, and the White House Experience. And again, I'll be showing you how to download it and open it and have a tutorial or navigate the app. So if you all could or want to or would like to follow along, you can, and it's recommended. So you can have these apps downloaded to explore after the session is over. So first up is, Fox 5 DC, news and alerts. News doesn't wait. Why should you? Take Fox 5 DC everywhere you go. Fox 5 DC connects you with top stories and around DC, complete with breaking news alerts, live video, and real-time weather forecasts. So I know we've covered some news apps before, but this is just an additional one that you can take advantage of. You know, Fox 5 is pretty popular, so wanted to showcase that with you all really quick. So you're going to go to the App Store on your device, as usual, and you are going to hit the search button at the bottom right and type in the type of app or name of the app that you want to search. You hit the search button once you type it in, and you see it's right here at the top right of the screen. It's Fox 5 DC News and Alerts. You can get it, download it, and open it, and then you will be able to take advantage of the app. So again, this is the Fox 5 DC News and Alerts app, and we are going to go into it. Okay, so Fox 5 DC. So this is it's a really simple app. You don't even need to create an account, which I think is really neat. This is your home page. So look, top stories. There's something called Good Day DC. So some, I guess, more positive focused stories, but just interesting stories, Let's see, Lion Lunch Hour. That's pretty cool. Like It or Not. The Final Five. I'm sure they have their own segments, I guess, on Fox 5 DC. I don't watch the news too often, but this is quite interesting. US News, today's weather, looking through. So yeah, that's the home page. So on your home page, you can look at some of the most recent and updated news stories. And look at the top right, it says watch live. So look, when I hit that,
the show and these crazy challenges
look at that. You can literally watch
that the contestants
it live
have to take part in.
Right here. Wasn't that easy?
Right. Well, first of all, I have to say,
wasn't that so easy just to be able to watch Fox 5 from the app? All you have to do is hit watch live. So I think that's pretty neat, right? So yeah, your homepage, you can look at different news, different articles. So let's look at this one, Corona Kitchen Founder. Okay, so this is a video. Oh yeah, anything that has a little plus sign next to it is a video. So right here on the right-hand side, these are all videos, which can be neat. What's this? Just this article. You see, if I'm inside of an article, this is cool. An aircraft fuselage has been revealed as an artifact connected to a formerly top secret Cold War program. Wow, that's interesting. So look, if you look through, here's the article. At the top right, I can even go into the picture. That's really cool if I want to expand it, right? At the top right, I see these A's, so I can make the text bigger or smaller if I want to. And if I want to share this article with somebody, I can hit the share button here at the top right, and I can mail it, I can iMessage it, I can put in notes or reminders, things of that nature. Look at that, that's pretty neat. So yeah, that's how you go into an article or a video on the homepage of this app. You have your explore page. So look, you have different sections. You can search here at the top right. You can search for kind of any topic that you want, or you can go by the sections. So look at all these different sections. Isn't that pretty neat? Let's do DMV zone. What's that? It takes me to a website. That's pretty neat to look through. Yeah, DC Emancipation Day and other things to do in DC, Maryland, Virginia. Wow, lots of great stuff right here to look at. If you want to do more about sports, look, they have a sports specific page that you can look at right here in the explore part. Entertainment, like that's pretty neat. That takes you to a website. Wow. Pretty cool. Oh yeah, Roberto Cavalli. He passed away. That was pretty sad. No, he was a great designer. Virginia artist. Oh yeah, with the Beyonce album. DMV News. That's pretty cool. So with the Explore page, you can either search for something that you would like, or you can look at through the different sections. Again, this play button right here in the middle takes you to, you're able to play the video, which I think is neat. That was an ad. So you can go through their weather. Let me refresh. Oh yeah, look at that weather. That's pretty cool. It's 73 degrees right now. We all have a weather app on our iPads, but hey, if you just want to look at right here, it's right here. And there are weather news. So look, March months, the 10th straight month as the hottest on record. Oh my gosh. Wind advisory. Yes, it was really windy yesterday too. Wow. So weather news. And then last but not least is settings. So, you know, if you want to turn on notifications, right? So if you want to get some news sent to your notifications, you can change the display. You can do light or dark mode within the app, which is really neat. But yeah, it's a really simple app to look through and navigate. You have your news, you have your Explore, your weather. You can even watch Fox 5 live.
To work with you. I was just sitting here thinking they're only,
which I think is really, really neat. So that is the Fox 5 DC app. Thanks for the chat, Mrs. Stephen. Yeah, this is quite a fun app, so I hope you take advantage of it. So that is Fox 5 DC. If you like the Fox 5 DC app, I want you to raise your hand in Zoom. If you like it, if you want to download it, take advantage of it, I want you to raise your hand in Zoom, please. Thank you. So far, you have 4 hands up. Again, you know, this is just an additional news app that you can take advantage of. Again, we have Apple News that we went over, Google News, but there are many, many news apps up there as well. So hopefully I'll take advantage of it on your iPad. It looks great. So thank you. You all can lower your hands. I saw we had about 5 to 6 hands, so I really appreciate that. Our next app for today is called DC Historic Sites, a Curetoscape. Never heard of that word until when I creating this session. You can learn about DC's important and irreplaceable historic places and spaces. DC Historic Sites is based on the DC Inventory of Historic Sites, the city's official list of properties deemed worthy of recognition and protection for their contribution to the cultural heritage of the city, the nation's capital, and the nation. So the icon, it looks like Historic DC, okay? And if I go to the App Store like I did before, and I hit the search button, and if I hit it again, I can then hit it again, and then it comes up, or I can hit the bar at the top. That's great, Miss Maria. That's great. Fox 5 is very popular. So, you know, I maybe thought, you know, some of you would have it because it's, you know, it's really useful to take advantage of, you know. So DC Historic Sites, you search for it. And at the top right, you have DC Historic Sites, DC Preservation League. Again, you can learn more about the app. Again, this app was developed by the DC Preservation League, Washington's only citywide nonprofit dedicated to the preservation, protection, and enhancement of the historic resources of our nation's capital. So you're going to go ahead and open it. And this is what your app will look like, DC Historic Sites. It's taking a second to load, but it's very, very simple. You have your menu here on the left-hand side, where you can look, discover, you can look at different sites, different tours. You can even search for things that you want to look more about. So, you know, this app, you know, I tested it out before. It just takes a second to load, but look at that, Discover. This is your Discover page. You want to take a tour from your home on DC on your iPad? This is the way to go. So these are some featured sites. Look at that. Have you heard of the Nixon Muncie House? Seafarers Yacht Club. Wow. Rock Creek Church Yard and Cemetery. Buchanan School Plaza. The Buzzard Point Power Plants. The Forest Marbury House. Never heard of any of these. I'm going to be honest, right? Never heard of any of those. That's really cool. So like Discover, you can discover any of these different sites. So let's go to, what is the Forest Marbury House? And look, this site. Wow, Forest Marbury House. Constructed between 1788 and 90, the Forest Marbury House is one of DC's few remaining 18th century buildings. So look at that. It gives you a description, related resources as well, which is interesting. You have the location. So this is right here on M Street in Georgetown, which is quite interesting right here. Didn't work too far from there at one point in my life. And if you look at the top right here, you have the image, the text, and then you have the photos. So these are images of the Forest Marbury House. Present day, this is what it looks like. Wow, that's what it looks like now. I know this house, like just looking at it. I've passed by it, you know, as a kid all the time. So that's really, really neat. So you can look at text and photos for each site, right? Each site that you visit through here. Wow, so discover, these are the sites right here. If you literally just tap on it. Look at this, like, oh my gosh. There's just looking through. There's literally a wealth of knowledge here. You can learn about any place that you want to in DC. You know, that has any historical significance. I mean, it's a lot. Again, we're a city full of history, so that's amazing, right? So look, let's see. It's Northeast Savings Bank. The Northeast Savings Bank, Nesby, 800 A Street. I know. Well, I know this area. I mean, it's A Street right now. It's I think it's a, let me see, present day. Like looking at the pictures, yeah, it's a PNC right now. Northeast Savings Bank. Wow. Just looking through the pictures, that's really neat. Recent, again, looking through. William Wilson Corcoran store. Where is this at? Also in Georgetown. Okay, right there on N Street. Okay. I went to let's see. I looked it up. I went to middle school in this area. That was really cool. But yeah, all these different sites right here. Some recent and some featured. So Eastern High School, I'd want to go and learn more about that. Tours, again, with the menu on the left, you can look at different tours by list, right? So historic downtown in Chinatown, U Street and Shaw, African American civil rights. Let me see this tour of these different sites. So it just comes up, loads. And then just by the way, if you want to share pretty much anything that you go into, you notice the share button at the top right. I mean, you can share this page with another person. I think that's really neat. African American civil rights, and they give you all the different Afro-American Institute. I was looking through, that's quite neat. So again, pictures, text, and then you have this search feature right here where you can search for any different term or phrase, things of that nature. So quite a simple app to navigate. I hope you all take advantage to learn more about our city, okay? But if you like DC historic sites and you want to download it, or you have downloaded it, or you enjoyed the app, I want you to raise your hand in Zoom. But again, it's a whole Curettascape, DC historic sites where you can learn about DC's important and irreplaceable historic places and spaces. So just by looking at this app, you can learn more about the history of our city. So really easy, simple to navigate, but lots of information. So I appreciate those that have raised their hands. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least is the White House or WH Experience app, where you can experiencing the White House offers multiple tours related to the executive mansion in a single app, including an intimate room-by-room virtual experience of the White House. Wow. So you're gonna go to the search in the App Store as you did before, and you're gonna type in WH Experience. And it's right here at the top right-hand side, WH Experience. And you're gonna go ahead and get it, download it, and open the app, okay? So when you do, I recommend that you have it, well, vertically. I think it's much easier to see vertically, okay? But look at that. It's from the White House Historical Association. So there are many different tours that you can do, right? So White House 360 virtual tour, a springtime scavenger hunt. Wow. If I hit begin, let's see what happens. For a guided tour of the White House, hit the small arrow at the bottom left side of the screen. This will show you starting spots for each space. Swipe around to move the rooms. I think that's pretty neat. White House 360 virtual tour, it's loading. Wow, look at that, isn't that neat? You can literally just swipe and move around like you're walking there. If you double tap, you can move around if you want. You can double tap and move around. This is wow. It's so cool, right? If I hit this up arrow, maybe I want to go to the family theater. Let's go here. Oh my goodness. This is really cool. Just being able to look through. What's here? Look at this space. Oh my goodness. It's like I'm in here. I did share in a previous session that I was able to get a chance to be in the White House and perform with a flute choir in the lobby of the White House. I never got to see this part, just their lobby area. But look, ground floor, corridor, state dining room. Look at that, isn't that neat? You can literally take a tour of the White House. So that's just this scavenger part one, right? If I go back to the home, tour the White House for kids, presidential lookalike. Oh, I think if you take a picture, you'll see who you look like, what president you may look like in a way. That's really neat. Tour the White House for kids. I wonder what that one is. Building of the White House, painting by Peter Waddell in 2007. Okay, this is an audio tour, but in few facts. That's neat. The East Wing. Oh, wow. That's really cool, you all. Just look through tours. These are some of the feature tours. The history of the White House fence. Look at that. Begin. You have the landscape plan for the White House, original wooden fence line, president's house. Let me hit play really quick.
The earliest known fence at the White House was erected in 1801 by President Thomas Jefferson. Made of wooden posts and rails, this simple fence encircled the newly built executive mansion. Over the next
that's cool. An audio tour just for you, which is amazing. Next stop. Wow, literally a tour or an exploration of how that happened. You can search for the kind of tour, I guess, through, and then you have your map feature and of course your more. So more information, right? So tour is more about the app. So this was from the White House Historical Association. You can learn more about them. Educational resources. Let me see what comes up for that. Oh wow, that was cool. Explore the resources. You can go to the website. There's a podcast. Wow, even packets. History Teacher Institute. Video resources. Wow. 1600 sessions podcast. That's cool. You can look up a podcast. Life at podcasts. So if I simply tap on that button, look at that. It takes me to the Apple Podcast app, and it takes me to the podcast that they have. So look, they release one every month or so. So you can learn more about the White House, which is quite interesting. So wow, that is the White House Experience app. You can learn more about the White House and take a virtual tour and learn more about it and get access to different resources and information. So that is the White House Experience app. So if you want to download it or you enjoy it or you like the app, please raise your hand in Zoom. But again, literally taking a tour, I wish we had more time together, but taking a virtual tour just by swiping and going through those tours like virtually, I think that's, wow. You didn't, I wasn't expecting to find that you could do that in a way, but it's quite interesting. So I hope you all enjoy. Wow, 5 hands up. That was cool. That's great. Thank you so much. That's a lot of fun. And that brings us to the close of our session. So today we learned more about DC, about Emancipation Day. We also took advantage of 3 apps, a news app, Fox 5 DC, an app where you can learn more about the historic places and spaces in DC with pictures and information. And we also went over how, the White House, which is, a very big part of DC, we learned how to tour it and learn more information about its creation. And again, have access to additional resources as well. So really appreciate you all coming on to today. The rest of the session, we'll have our overview and discussion. So especially with all this information, I would love if, if you could raise your hand if you want to answer one or more of these questions, okay? And we really got to focus on these questions because we only have, a little bit of time left together. So just keep that in mind. But one, what is one new fact that you learned today? Two, what app or apps are you interested in trying out and why? Three, do you consider DC to be your home? What do you like most about living in DC? And how will you celebrate DC Emancipation Day this year? Yesterday, they had the parade at Freedom Plaza and they had the fireworks display, but they'll also be having quite a few things going on tomorrow as well. But if you would like to answer one or more of these questions, or just share your thoughts on today's session, please raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you. And again, I hope you all enjoy your holiday tomorrow. It's always a pleasure to present for you all. First up is Brenda. How are you?
I'm good, Alex. Doing great, thank you. Alex, I do consider DC my home. I was born and raised here, so this is the only home I know. I have already downloaded all of the apps. I really want to explore the one about the district, the sites in DC, because a lot of places I didn't know,
I know.
So, yeah, I'm gonna do that one. And how I will celebrate Emancipation Day, I'll probably be cooking, so that's how I'll celebrate it.
I know that's right, Brenda. I'm glad that you. Thank you. I saw your chats, and I really appreciate your participation. I really I was surprised, in fact, again, seeing these apps, especially with those sites. Like just seeing, like, I don't know, like I've been here for so long and I didn't know about it. Like I didn't even want to. I just wanted to just look. I just wanted to look and just show, be like, here, there's just so much to learn. So
exactly.
It's I'm really glad that you like those. And thanks. Anything else, Brenda?
Nope, that was it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well,
Enjoyed
no
it.
problem. Thank you. I really appreciate that, Brenda. You have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Next up is Mrs. Stephen. Hi, would you like to answer one of these questions?
Yes, I didn't know anything about these apps, and I'm really grateful that you introduced them. And another thing I'd like to say is that there are a tremendous amount of things to do in DC. There are a lot of free things, and especially the embassies. The embassies usually have, if you just go to a website, the Embassy of Poland or Finland or whatever, they have exhibitions. They have
they sure do
all kinds of things. When people come to this city, I wasn't born and raised here, but I do consider this my home. This is a phenomenal city, and they do take care of their people. But everything just flew out of my head, so I'm terribly sorry.
It's okay. Well, I'm glad that these apps were new, and I've seen that you've taken advantage of them. So it's I'm glad that you did that, and thanks for coming on and for sharing your comments today, Mrs. Stephen.
Everyone have a good day. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for the hands, everyone. Appreciate that. Hi, Miss Wilder. Would you like to answer one of these questions? Hope you're well.
Yes. Can you hear me? Yeah, because for some reason the volume for me is down low. I wanted to answer question one. What new fact did you do? I did not realize that DC was the first place to free the slaves. The video said something about they did it as a test.
8-9 months before there was.
So that's why, and then all of the Black people migrated to DC. That's why DC was called Chocolate City.
The first majority.
Now that's why Chocolate City. And I see why they're doing everything they can to make it no longer be Chocolate City. It certainly can't be called that anymore. But I did learn that fact today, that that's how it became Chocolate City.
Hey,
everyone have a great afternoon.
It definitely still is, Miss Fun, in a way. There's so much I love DC as a melting pot. There's so many different
Yes,
cultures
I do love
and
DC.
diversity here. And that's what I love about DC. And thanks so much for sharing, Ms. Wilda. I hope you get to take advantage of the apps today. Thank you so much. Next up is Miss Thompson. How are you today? Thanks for coming on.
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
DC is a wonderful place to live. Mostly the weather. It's a little bit of the north, the coldness, but a lot of the south, the hotness. And it's like slightly warm, and it's just great for the weather. I've been to many cities in the United States, and I was looking for more comfort place to live. And DC was the only place that I found that was comfortable to live in. I like the museums, they're free. Like I said, it's so many things here to do. So many things. And I just love this town. And I came from West Virginia, so I'm used to trees all the time. But, I love it. I love the city.
Oh, thank you so much, Brenda.
And then growing up, where this was the first place that they freed the slaves, is another outstanding. And I didn't know it was the first place that they freed the slaves.
Wow.
So that is another part of what I learned. And growing up down south in West Virginia, you learn not too much about Blacks.
Unfortunately.
It was all about hillbillies and whites.
And yes, I can understand. I've definitely heard about some things in West Virginia, so I agree with you on that. And it's funny that you say DC. We are technically a part of the South in a way, right? But because we're right, kind of in the middle of the United States, that center line. That's why we have that great weather. It doesn't get too cold. Not like more up north, and doesn't it gets hot, but it doesn't get like Georgia or like North Carolina hot. So I like how kind of medium it is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I hope you take advantage of especially that Historic Sites app, Ms. Tunt. I think that you would really like learning more about the different sites in DC.
Yes.
But,
thank you. Thank you
no
so
problem.
much.
No problem. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate your thoughts and words very much.
Okay. Thank you.
And if you don't have any other hands today, thank you all so much for your questions and your comments. I see the chat is going off too. I'll see that in a second. Hi, Ms. Shirley. Hope you're well. Which one would you like to answer?
Oh, I just want to say that, yes, I downloaded all of the apps and I was following along as you were going on. But I'm a native Washingtonian, and I was born and raised here. And two, it was interesting about finding out that DC was the port of, for the free slaves. But I learned a lot by watching that movie about Harriet Tubman, where she about the Underground Railroad. Yes, and tomorrow, Emancipation Day, I probably may go out and go downtown or something. I missed the celebration that they had yesterday down at the Freedom Plaza.
It was fun. My friend went. She took so many pictures, and they had all the DC artists and go-go and stuff, and it would have been so much fun. But I wasn't able to. But my friend did, and she had a lot of fun. So
yeah, I used to go down there where they had the Taste of DC, and Chuck Brown used to be down there.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
I like my go-go.
I know that's right, Miss.
All right. Thanks, Alice. But I'm in school, and I really like the one about the White House experience. My daughter came up here from Florida, her and her husband, and they went on a White House tour. But it was too late for me to get a ticket though. That's when we had that snowstorm back in January, but they still went anyhow.
Oh, well, there you go. You can take a virtual tour now, straight from the comfort of your own home, and different avenues as well. So I'm glad I found that for you.
All right, they canceled it the day of the storm, but that Wednesday before they left, they gave them another scheduled date, so they did go to the White House.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's an experience they won't forget.
Yes, it was nice. It was a nice trip. But thank you, Alice.
No problem, Shirley. You have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all so much for your questions. Rock Creek Park is the only natural city park in the nation. That's cool. This spring has been glorious. Yes, it sure has. I watch Fox 5 a lot for news and some sports, and yes, yes, thank you. I see all of your chats. No, yeah, the whole story. Yeah, that was really important. There is a memorial exclusive to, yes. I hope you all enjoy all of the information and the presentation today. Hope you all enjoy your holiday. It was a lot of fun learning more about DC, and it's always surprising and interesting, and I'm grateful to have shared some new info with you all today, just to give us more perspective and, gratefulness that, in 2024, things are way different than things were back then, and the way that we're able to interact and learn and speak and, work with people of all different shades and backgrounds and things of that nature. So thank you all so much for coming on. Mr. Thompson, did you want to answer one of these questions before we end for today?
Yes, I have a comment. Fox 5 DC in the morning is the only station that I watch because they stay local for the entire morning, whereby
really
other channels go to a national format.
Oh,
but Fox 5 stays local from 4 in the morning till noon, and they don't sneak away to national this or national that. But if it's national news, they'll talk about it. But their format is to stay right here locally, so you're getting news, weather, and everything updates all morning, rather than like Good Morning America on Channel 7 and Channel 9 will switch to their national programming. But Fox 5 DC is my station, is what I wanted to say. They stay local all the time.
Oh, no, thank you so much for that, Mr. Thompson. I never realized or thought of, I don't watch the news regularly or, had a TV regularly just to notice that. So thinking about it, yes, that does, if it's called Fox 5 DC, then it should be a majority for DC, especially in the morning, when folks are getting up and watching the news to know what's going on, especially in our area. I think that's most important. So I'm glad I found the app and that you noticed that, because it's important to know what's going on and, where we're on first, I think, versus, maybe what's going on in other places, because this is our home. So we always need to be aware of what's going on in that home. And
they stay local all morning.
But have you downloaded the app yet, or Ms. Thompson, the Fox 5
DC
app?
I haven't downloaded the app, but I stay tuned early, from early in the morning till afternoon. They have such great programming on that show.
I understand. Just try having the app just in case you need to watch it from there, for whatever reason, or if you just want to look at some news. So try to take advantage of it, okay?
Okie dokie. Thanks, Alex.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for coming on, Mr. Thompson. I look forward to our lunch club in about 40 minutes. Thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, we got some stuff to talk about too.
Oh, I know you do, Mr. Thompson. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Yep, sorry about that. I want to thank you all so much for coming on to today's session. And I hope you all have a great rest of your morning today. Again, we have our lunch club with Ronald at 12 o'clock, and we'll be ending our day with module 1, learning about an introduction to your iPad. Other than that, thank you all so much for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day and hope you enjoy your holiday tomorrow. See you all at 12 o'clock.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank
you, Alex. Informative.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Have a great day.
Good morning.
See you all
Have a
soon.
good day. Thank you.
See you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Have a good.
Have a blessed day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. You also.
Bye bye.